piercing scream echoed down the alleyway, sharp as broken glass. Ava spun around, heart pounding, the shrill sound yanking her out of her thoughts like a slap to the face. She'd just left the corner cafe, the same one she walked past every morning on her way to work, when something caught her eye, a wallet lying near a storm drain, just barely visible in the fading golden light of the setting sun. It wasn't the scream that froze her, but the name stitched inside the wallet. Daniel Harrow. Her breath caught in her throat. Her legs gave a slight buckle. That name, one she hadn't heard aloud since she was 8 years old, ripped open a sealed vault in her memory. She whispered, "Dad," under her breath, fingers trembling as she clutched the worn leather. Around her, the street seemed to fade, the world narrowing to this one impossible object in her hands. Thunder rumbled in the distance, a storm gathering. This wasn't just a lost wallet. It was a trigger, a beginning. Ava stood frozen, the name echoing inside her skull like a drumbeat. She blinked, unsure if what she held was real. "No," she whispered, voice nearly lost in the wind. "It can't be him." The memory of her father, just a blur of cologne, laughter and a single summer day, crashed into her all at once. She hadn't seen or heard from Daniel Harrow in 25 years. He was gone, declared dead after a mysterious disappearance. She remembered being told he'd been involved in something dangerous. That was all anyone ever said. Looking down at the wallet, she saw it wasn't new. The leather was cracked, and a faded family photo peeked from inside a plastic sleeve. Her own baby picture. Her hands started to tremble again. The world tilted, and she leaned against the brick wall beside her. Who dropped this? Who had this? She asked herself aloud. A passerby gave her a strange look, and kept walking. But Ava didn't care. Something in her life had just snapped loose. She stumbled forward, heart racing. "I need to know," Ava muttered. She crossed the street toward the nearest light, a flickering lamppost casting sickly halos. She opened the wallet again, her eyes darting to the ID. The address was local. Her chest tightened. "He's here? Or was?" she whispered. But it didn't make sense. If her father had vanished years ago, why would his ID turn up now? Was someone pretending to be him? Or had he survived all this time, living under the radar? Ava began walking quickly, almost running, ignoring the cars honking as she jaywalked. Her mind raced through theories, each more impossible than the last. She gripped the wallet like it could disappear. The world blurred around her. Faces, lights, city noise. The only thing real was the beat of her own pulse, and the leather between her hands. It wasn't just about finding him anymore. It was about finally knowing the truth. Ava's phone buzzed. It was Lena. The screen lit up with the words, "You okay?" Ava stared at it, then ignored the call. She couldn't explain, not yet. She turned down a narrow street toward the address on the ID. As she walked, her memories crowded in. Her mother crying quietly at night. The box of photos her aunt burned in the backyard. The silence that wrapped around her childhood like smoke. "Why didn't anyone tell me the truth?" she whispered, more to the wind than to herself. Her steps slowed as she reached the block where the address pointed. A row of decaying brownstones loomed under the bruised evening sky. Every window felt like an eye. She paused in front of one with a broken gate. The mailbox read, "D.D. Harrow." Her heart dropped into her stomach. "No way," she murmured. "He lived here?" The truth might be just a few steps away, but it could also tear her world apart. She hesitated, then stepped through the broken gate. Her boots crunched over gravel as she approached the door. The front steps creaked under her weight. She knocked once, lightly, then again, louder. No answer. She tried the knob. Unlocked. The door creaked open with an eerie groan. Inside, the house was dark and smelled of dust and old wood. Ava stepped in, her breath catching. Photographs lined the hallway, blurry, old, and stained with time. She reached out, her fingers grazing one that stopped her cold. It was her. As a child. in a yellow dress she hadn't seen since she was 6. A sob rose in her throat, but she swallowed it. Somewhere in this house, there had been a life tied to hers. She whispered, "Dad, were you really here?" The wind slammed the door shut behind her. Ava jumped. Silence followed. She was inside. There was no turning back now. The floorboards creaked beneath Ava's cautious steps as she wandered deeper into the house. Dust particles danced in the dim light, leaking through the closed curtains. The air was thick, like time had stopped here years ago. She stepped into a study filled with papers, books, and half-burned candles. Everything looked abandoned in a hurry. Ava scanned the room, spotting a corkboard littered with newspaper clippings, some circled in red ink. Her fingers brushed over headlines: "Whistleblower vanishes, government ties to missing scientist." Her father had been digging into something dark. At the center of the board was a photo of Daniel Harrow, older, bearded, worn, but unmistakably him. He hadn't just lived, he had fought. Ava whispered, "What were you doing, Dad?" Behind her a floorboard groaned. Was it just her or someone else? She turned sharply. Nothing. But her pulse said otherwise. She wasn't just discovering a home. She was stepping into someone's unfinished mission. Ava sat on the edge of a moth-eaten couch, the wallet and clippings spread before her on a coffee table. Her eyes scanned documents she didn't fully understand. Codes, government abbreviations, strange names she didn't recognize. Some pages were scribbled over in her father's handwriting. "They know. Stop everything. Trust no one." Ava exhaled shakily. "You were scared," she murmured. "And you tried to protect us?" The room echoed with silence. She pulled out her phone and dialed Lena. Straight to voicemail. She left a message anyway. "Lena, I think I found something. About my dad. Please call me back. She stopped herself. "I don't know who I can trust." She ended the call. For the first time, she wasn't sure if even Lena, her lifelong confidant, had been honest with her. The idea stung worse than fear. What secrets had been kept in the name of protection? Later that night, Ava returned to her apartment, mind spinning. She locked the door, drew the curtains, and paced. Her walls, once comforting, now felt like they were closing in. She pulled out a shoebox from under her bed, an old box of childhood photos and keepsakes. She flipped through until she found it. A picture of her mom, and her dad, taken the summer before he vanished. They were smiling, carefree. She stared at it, looking for hidden tension, any sign of the secrets he'd been carrying. She remembered asking her mother once, "Why did Daddy leave?" Her mother had only said, "He had to." Ava hadn't understood then. Maybe she never would. But now, something deep inside her refused to let go. She opened her laptop and typed in one of the names from the newspaper clippings. Project Emrafall. The screen froze. Then a pop-up. Access restricted. Ava whispered, "What the hell is this?" Morning light poured in through a crack in the curtains, harsh and unforgiving. Ava hadn't slept. Her laptop still glowed beside her, casting a blue hue across the room. She stared at the ceiling, numb. Everything she knew was splintering. She thought of her students, her quiet life, how far it all was from whatever her father had gotten involved in. She dressed without thinking and left the apartment, walking through the city like a ghost. At a cafe, she ordered her usual but didn't taste it. A man brushed past her shoulder too closely. She flinched. Were they watching her now? Paranoia nipped at her like icy wind. She pulled her coat tighter and sat by the window. Somewhere outside this cafe, the answers live. She knew she couldn't stop now. Not after getting this far. If her father had risked everything to uncover the truth, maybe it was time she did too. That afternoon, Ava returned to the brownstone. She climbed the creaky stairs with resolve. Inside the study, she scanned the board again, then her eyes settled on something new. A small key taped behind a photo. She peeled it off, heart racing. It was old, brass, etched with a number, 413. A locker? A box? Her mind jumped. She dug deeper and found a notebook beneath the floorboards, her father's journal. Inside, sketches, formulas, paranoid rants, and one address circled repeatedly. An old storage facility on the city's edge. Ava stood frozen, heart pounding. Whatever was inside that locker, her father had died, or vanished, trying to protect it. She clenched the key tightly. "I'm going," she said aloud, voice trembling but certain. The secrets weren't just part of her past. They were threatening her present. And she wasn't going to run from them. Not anymore. The storage facility loomed on the outskirts of the city. Steel doors, flickering security lights, and rows of numbered units stretching into shadow. Ava parked her car and stepped out, clutching the brass key in her pocket. The cold wind bit at her face as she searched for unit 413. Her boots echoed in the silence. When she found it, the lock was dusty but intact. Her fingers trembled as she slid the key in. Click, dot. The door groaned open, revealing a dim, musty interior. Stacked boxes, folders, a small metal safe, and a single framed photo of her mother. Ava's breath caught. "You were still watching us," she whispered. She stepped inside, pulling the chain light overhead. The space lit up, revealing years of secrets. She didn't realize she was being watched. Across the lot, a black car idled. Inside, a man in a gray coat lifted a phone. "She's here," he said flatly. She found it. Inside the unit, Ava began sorting through the boxes. Each was labeled meticulously, dates, locations, coded initials. She opened one marked MBF87 and pulled out maps, surveillance photos, and sealed envelopes. In the back of the unit, she found a safe. She knelt beside it, the numbers on the dial worn from use. As she turned the knob slowly, she noticed something odd. No dust on the safe's edge. Someone had been here recently. Her stomach turned. She opened it. Inside were cassette tapes, a folder marked Witness, and a flash drive. She slipped it into her coat. That's when a noise outside stopped her cold. A soft crunch of gravel. Someone was out there. She froze, heart hammering. She turned off the light and crouched in the dark. Heavy footsteps approached. Ava backed toward the far wall, breathing shallowly. A shadow blocked the slit of light beneath the door. Someone knew she was here. Ava waited in silence as the footsteps paused just outside the unit. Her breath felt thunderous in her chest. Suddenly, the handle jiggled. A pause. Then, a slow retreat. She waited a full minute before daring to move. She grabbed what she could, tapes, flash drive, a few documents, and slipped out through a side exit. Her car wasn't far. She kept low, adrenaline pushing her forward. As she started the engine, her phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number: "You're in danger. They know you have it. Don't trust Lena." Her blood turned to ice. She looked around, no sign of the car that had been watching earlier. Was it real? Or had she imagined it? She sped away, gripping the wheel hard. "Don't trust Lena?" she repeated aloud. Lena? Her best friend? Her family? No, what? It couldn't be. But part of her knew, deep down, that everything had just shifted again. She was being hunted now. Back in her apartment, Ava bolted the door and threw the flash drive into her laptop. The screen lit up with video files labeled with dates and code names. She clicked one. Her father's face appeared, grainy and older. "If you're watching this," he said, voice low, "then I've failed to stop them. What I uncovered. It's bigger than corruption. It's a system built on silence, murder, and erasure. Emberfall isn't a project. It's a purge." Ava froze. Her hands trembled. The video showed files, people marked as liabilities. Journalists. Scientists. Her father. "They'll come for anyone who asks questions," he said. "Even family. Even you." Ava blinked back tears. "Why didn't you come for me?" she whispered. But she already knew the answer. He hadn't been hiding from her. He'd been hiding her from them. A knock at the door snapped her back. She shut the laptop and grabbed her phone. The knock came again, louder this time. She approached the door slowly, phone in one hand, her other hovering near a kitchen drawer. "Who is it?" she called out, her voice strained. "It's me," Lena's voice replied. "Ava, we need to talk." Her stomach twisted. The message still glowed on her phone. "Don't trust Lena." But it was Lena, her laugh, her comfort, her anchor. Ava hesitated. "What do you know about Emberfall?" she asked through the door. A beat of silence. Then Lena replied carefully, "Enough to know you're not safe. Open the door." Ava's mind raced. She checked the peephole. Lena stood there, alone, nervous, glancing over her shoulder. Was she lying? Or trying to help? The weight of trust, memory, and fear crushed her all at once. She unlatched the bolt, but didn't open the door. "Talk first," she said, voice steady. "Right here." On the other side, Lena sighed. "Okay," she said, "but you're not going to like what I have to say." Lena's voice cracked through the wood like a confession. "I knew your father was alive," she said. Ava stood frozen on the other side of the door. "What?" she whispered. Lena's voice dropped. "After he disappeared, I helped him. He didn't trust anyone, not even your mother. He said he had to keep you away from it all." Ava's heart sank. "You knew?" she hissed. "And you never told me?" Lena's voice was tight. "I wanted to, but I promised him. And after he vanished again, I thought it was better not to dredge it all up." Ava's voice rose. "You let me believe he abandoned us." Silence fell heavy. Finally Lena said, "I made a choice, to protect you. I didn't know it would come to this." Ava's hands shook. The weight of betrayal crashed over her. Truth had always been out of reach, and now it was tangled in a friend's lie. She opened the door. "Start from the beginning," she said, eyes locked on Lena's. They sat across from each other at the kitchen table, an ocean of emotion between them. Lena spoke slowly, deliberately. "He contacted me 12 years ago. Said he was being hunted. He sent money for your mom, files in case something happened. Then, 3 years ago, he vanished. No goodbye, no explanation." Ava's jaw clenched. "Why didn't you come to me then?" Lena stared down at her hands. "Because I thought he was finally dead, and I was scared. Scared they'd come after you if I opened that door again." Ava swallowed her fury. "You kept secrets for 12 years, and now you're what? My partner in truth?" Lena didn't flinch. "No, but I'm done lying." She slid a flash drive across the table. "He gave me this the last time we spoke. I didn't know what to do with it, until now." Ava stared at it. One more piece of the puzzle. From someone she no longer fully trusted. Ava plugged the flash drive into her laptop. Video loaded, a continuation of her father's recording. "If you're seeing this," he said. Then Lena kept her word. Ava's head whipped toward her. "You really knew all this time?" Lena didn't respond. The video showed a document with government insignia, classified clearances, names blacked out. Daniel's voice continued. "They're silencing anyone who threatens exposure. Project Emberfall was designed to erase inconvenient people. Permanently." Ava's hands trembled. "My God," she muttered. Then came a list of targets. One name struck her like a bullet. Evelyn Marlowe, her mother. Her father's voice broke. "They killed her because of me." Ava's breath stopped. No, that's not possible. But, in her gut, she knew. The silence. The sadness. The lies. Her mother's death hadn't been illness. It had been execution. "They're still out there," Daniel said. "If you run, you die. If you fight, you might survive." Ava's choice was becoming terrifyingly clear. The walls of Ava's life had shattered. She stood by the window now, looking out at the indifferent city below. Her mother was murdered. Her father was hunted. And Lena, her one constant, had been part of the lie. "I don't know who I am anymore," Ava said quietly. Lena approached slowly. You're still you, Ava. Just finally whole. Ava turned, fury in her eyes. No, I'm a shell of someone who grew up believing a lie. Her voice cracked. You had every chance to tell me. Lena nodded. I did, and I failed you. But now you know the truth, and you have a choice. Ava looked at her, voice flat. Do I? The words hung like smoke. For a long time, neither spoke. Outside, thunder cracked again. The storm was coming, literal and metaphorical. Ava crossed the room, grabbed the flash drive and notebook, and stuffed them into her bag. If I die chasing this, she said, at least I'll die knowing. Ava walked Lena to the door. The trust between them had shattered, but something like solidarity still clung to the edges. Where will you go? Lena asked. Ava shrugged. Where the truth leads. Lena hesitated, then pulled a card from her coat. This man, Paul Singer. He was your father's contact. If he's still alive, he'll know how to finish this. Ava accepted it wordlessly. I'm sorry, Lena added quietly. Ava didn't respond. She closed the door gently, locking it behind her. She walked back to the kitchen, the glow of the laptop screen still illuminating the dark room. She sat down, staring at her father's face frozen in the video. He'd risked everything. Her mother had died for it. And now, it was her turn to decide if she'd keep running, or finally step into the fire. Her mind was made up. It was time to find Paul Singer. Time to finish what they started. The building was tucked behind a crumbling courthouse downtown, marked only by a black metal door and a buzzer. Ava stood outside, card in hand, wind pulling at her coat. The name on the doorbell read P. Singer. She pressed it. A gruff voice answered, Who sent you? Ava hesitated. Daniel Harrow. I'm his daughter. Silence. Then a metallic click. The door creaked open. Inside, the narrow hallway smelled of old files and antiseptic. She found Paul, in a cramped office piled with boxes and dusty equipment. Gray-haired, mid-60s, eyes sharp despite his years. You have his eyes, he said. He said you'd come, if things got bad enough. Ava handed him the notebook and flash drive. Paul glanced through it, then looked up. You realize what this means, don't you? Emberfall wasn't shut down. It's still active. Ava's throat tightened. And they killed my mother. Paul nodded slowly. They kill anyone who threatens the lie. Paul paced, running his hands through his hair as Ava watched him from the corner. Your father was one of the last to leak internal documents. After he vanished, I went dark too, but we stored enough evidence to burn this thing down. Ava leaned forward. Then why haven't you? Paul paused. Because people die, Ava. Good people. Your mother wasn't an accident. Her jaw clenched. So I'm supposed to just bury it again? Paul met her eyes. No, but you better understand what happens when you don't. He opened a drawer and handed her a folder. This is everything. The final proof. But if you go public, it won't just be you they come for. Ava stared down at the folder. Inside were names, living whistleblowers, past victims, plans for silencing them all. I can't let them win, she said. Paul gave a weary smile. Then you've already chosen. Just be ready for what comes next. Later that night, Ava sat alone on her rooftop, the city lights below blinking like stars. Folder rested in her lap. Dolnu? She opened it again, pages rustling in the wind. Her father's handwriting, photographs of hidden labs, meeting transcripts, all of it undeniable. She pulled out her phone, thumb hovering over a secure journalist contact Paul had given her. She thought of Lena, of her students, of her mother's laugh. This will destroy people, she whispered. But silence already has. She dialed. A voice answered. Secure line. Who's speaking? Ava's voice didn't waver. I have evidence on Project Emberfall. I want it published. There was a long pause. Where did you get this? From my father, Ava said. He died trying to expose the truth. I'm ready to finish what he started. Her chest was tight, but her voice was steel. She hung up. There was no turning back now. By morning the fallout had begun. A major independent news outlet published Ava's leak, complete with redacted files, timelines, and witness accounts. The name, Emberfall, spread like wildfire across headlines and social media. Ava sat alone in her apartment, blinds drawn, watching the chaos unfold on the screen. Anonymous source, the anchor said. Whistleblower files implicate powerful officials in decades-long covert operations. Her phone buzzed constantly, calls, threats, even messages of support. Then, a single message from an unknown number. "We warned you." Ava stared at it for a long time before deleting it. There was no going back. Lena called, but she didn't answer. She knew what was coming. The danger, the surveillance, the retaliation. But there was also something else, an unfamiliar feeling. Pride. She looked out the window as sirens echoed in the distance. Maybe the world wasn't fixed. But at least now, it had been told. Hours later, a knock came at Ava's door. This time, she didn't flinch. She checked the peephole. Lena. She opened it without a word. Lena stepped inside, eyes wide with shock. "You really did it," she said. Ava nodded. "It's out. They can't silence it now." Lena glanced around nervously. "You're not safe. You know that." Ava smiled faintly. Neither were the people they buried. They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Lena whispered, "He'd be proud of you." Ava's voice cracked. "He should have been here." But she didn't cry. She couldn't. "They'll come," Lena warned. "Let them," Ava said. "The world knows now. I'm done hiding." Outside, black cars were already circling the block. The final storm had arrived. But Ava stood in its path willingly. Because some truths were worth the risk. Because sometimes justice had a name. And hers was Ava Harrow. 2 days had passed since the Emberfall leak went public. Ava had gone into hiding, staying in a friend of a friend's apartment deep in the outskirts of the city. She stared out the window of the unfamiliar space, watching distant trains pass, the sound low and rhythmic like a heartbeat. On the table behind her, news reports buzzed nonstop. Congressional hearings launched, resignations announced, anonymous testimonies flooding in. It was working. But the cost weighed heavy. Her phone buzzed. A secure message from Paul. "Well done. Stay quiet. They're looking." Ava deleted it immediately. Her world had shrunk to one room, one breath at a time. But this exile wasn't fear. It was transition. For the first time, the past didn't define her. The truth was no longer locked behind lies or people's protection. Her father's secrets were now hers to carry, but also hers to set down. And slowly she would. Ava sat at the borrowed kitchen table, a cup of tea steaming in front of her, notebook open. Not her father's, hers. She began to write. Not data, not conspiracy, her story. Line by line, she chronicled everything. The day she found the wallet, the memory of her mother's voice, the feeling of betrayal and clarity. Writing was slow, almost painful, but it helped her breathe. She paused only once to stare at a childhood photo she had taped to the wall above her laptop. In it, she was 5, held in her father's arms, laughing at something off frame. She touched it gently. "You tried," she whispered. "And I see that now." For years, she had needed answers. Now she needed understanding. The world outside buzzed with consequences, but inside this little kitchen, Ava was beginning to make peace with the fragments. Healing wasn't a headline. It was a process. Later that afternoon, Ava met Lena in a public garden on the edge of the city, a quiet place where no one would expect either of them to be. The trees rustled gently in the breeze, the sound of children laughing in the distance. Lena arrived late, shoulders tense. Ava didn't stand when she saw her. They simply looked at each other. No masks now. "You did it," Lena said softly, sitting down. "I did," Ava replied. And I'm still here. Lena studied her. I didn't think you would be. Ava smirked, tired but alive. Neither did I. For a moment, there was silence between them. Not tense, not bitter. Just real. I want to help if you're still fighting, Lena offered. Ava shook her head gently. No more fighting. Just building. Lena nodded. Then, let's start there. The betrayal wasn't forgotten. But something stronger was beginning. Reconnection, earned honestly. In the days that followed, Ava began to speak. Quietly, anonymously, and with care. She emailed surviving names from the Emberfall list. Whistleblowers still in hiding. Scientists who'd lost everything. Some responded with fear. Others with gratitude. A few asked to meet. Ava never promised safety. Only honesty. She wasn't trying to be a savior. Just a connector, a spark. She helped organize encrypted calls, introduced journalists to silent survivors, and reviewed her father's old research with a fresh eye. It no longer felt like a burden. It was a calling. A quiet one. A necessary one. She didn't know what would come next, but she no longer feared it. Her past had once been a locked door. Now, it was open. She didn't have to forget what had happened to survive it. Ava smiled to herself as her inbox pinged with a new name. Someone ready to tell their story. The ripple had begun. A week later, Ava returned to the brownstone. The front gate still leaned crooked, the mailbox still rusted. She stepped inside with quiet reverence. The place was untouched, frozen in time. She wandered through the hall slowly, brushing her fingers against the photos on the wall. In the study, she sat in her father's old chair. The dust didn't bother her now. She opened a drawer and placed a fresh photo inside, one of her as she is now. A new chapter. She stood and looked around one last time. I'm okay, Dad, she said aloud. You can rest. As she closed the door behind her, a breeze stirred through the hallway, lifting a curtain just slightly, like a sigh, or maybe an answer. Ava stepped back into the sunlight, lighter than she had been in years. The house wasn't a tomb anymore. It was memory. It was hers. And she was ready to live. The sky was pale blue, streaked with golden light as Ava walked along a coastal trail, wind brushing her hair back. The ocean stretched endlessly beside her, calm but alive. She hadn't been here since she was a teenager, back when her mother used to bring her for picnics. She carried nothing but a small envelope tucked into her coat, her father's last letter, copied from his journal. She reached a cliffside bench and sat quietly, breathing in the sea air. You always said this place was sacred, she murmured. She opened the envelope and reread the letter. If I disappear, it's only to keep you safe. One day, you'll understand why I couldn't stay. Tears welled, but she didn't cry. Not this time. She folded the letter, kissed it, and let the wind take it. The pages danced toward the water, twirling through the air like a soul finding peace. So did Ava. Ava stood and walked slowly along the path, shoes crunching against gravel. Birds soared overhead, catching the last light. She passed families laughing, older couples strolling in silence, and children chasing the wind, life unbroken and ongoing. No one knew who she was. And for once, that anonymity was a gift. She wasn't Daniel Harrow's daughter. She wasn't a whistleblower. She was Eva. Just Eva. She watched the sun dip lower, firelight across the horizon, and felt the stirrings of peace rising in her chest, not loud, but certain. The weight she had carried for decades no longer dragged at her shoulders. She had held the truth, exposed it, survived it. Now she could carry herself differently. Her steps slowed as she reached the end of the trail. A wooden sign read, "You are here." Ava smiled. "Yes," she whispered. "I am." For the first time in a long time, that felt true. Later that evening, Ava returned to her apartment, not to hide, but to exist. The lights were soft, the air calm. She brewed tea, lit a candle, and pulled out her notebook. She flipped to a blank page and wrote, Chapter 1, after the silence. It wasn't a manifesto. It wasn't for anyone but her. Just the beginning of what came next. She turned on music. An old jazz record she'd found at a thrift store with her mother. Notes floated through the air like a quiet balm. She moved through the space slowly, tracing the light with her fingertips, every inch finally her own. She wasn't afraid of the knock anymore. She wasn't waiting for a threat. Her life wasn't on pause. It was playing finally. Ava curled up by the window, notebook in lap, pen in hand, and started writing again. She didn't know where the story would go. But she wasn't lost anymore. Ava returned to the classroom weeks later, not for herself, but for the students who still believed truth mattered. The school had been hesitant to take her back after the media storm, but public support had made silence impossible. The kids didn't ask about Emberfall. They just welcomed her with wide eyes and cautious smiles. Ava stood at the whiteboard, dry erase marker in hand, staring at her own name written above a lesson plan. It felt surreal, but it also felt right. "All right," she said, voice steady. "Let's talk about resilience." The students leaned forward. Ava smiled. The word had once been a burden, something expected of her without kindness. Now, it was something she chose. She wasn't the same woman who had found that wallet. She was something new, shaped by grief, anger, truth, and courage. She had burned the old path behind her. What came next would be hers to teach and to walk. Weeks became months. The story of Emberfall faded from headlines, replaced by newer scandals, louder voices. But Ava didn't mind. She hadn't spoken to reporters again. Her truth had already been told. One afternoon, as spring painted the city in soft green, Ava walked past the same cafe where it all began. The sidewalk buzzed with life. A woman tripped ahead of her, dropping a wallet. Ava bent to pick it up. As she handed it back, their eyes met. "Thanks," the woman said. Ava nodded, smiling. "Be careful. You never know what a wallet can start." The woman laughed, unaware of the gravity behind the words. Ava continued walking, lighter with every step. The city was still complicated, broken in places, but so was she. And that no longer scared her. She paused at the corner, closed her eyes, and breathed deeply. The past was behind her. The future was unwritten. But Ava Hara was finally free.